Hello, my name is Frank Douglas for NCI TV. Welcome once again to our program Kehte-Hiyak. Today we'll be listening to an elder who's originally from Ojibway country in Ontario. Art Shofley now lives in Winnipeg, where he works with the Aboriginal Cultural Society. Now let us listen to Art as he tells us his memories about growing up in southern Ontario, and also a little about how he got into powwow dancing.
I'm from Ojibway country. That's Ontario, call it Ontario, and that's Soto as well, referred to. And when I was real young, many moons ago, I got separated from my family at the age of 4. So I was raised for a few years by non-Indians, people of, I guess Caucasian persuasion. Most of them were referred to themselves as settlers, and they regarded themselves as, pioneer stock, and they had all the ethics of that society, part of that society. And I was raised up with them for a while. I worked on some of their farms as free labor and so on. That was before they got social workers on the scene. But anyway, being separated at that young age from my own reserve, I'm from around Sault Ste. Marie, Batchewana, Ontario, and I got shifted around Toronto, east of Toronto, Peterborough area, and that's farming country. And that's, those are farmers, small farmers. They have small farms, and they raised, mixture of, cattle, horses, pigs, small crops, wheat, oats, hay. They live pretty well agricultural. And the ones I was raised with for a few years, their sons went into the cities to work. So that was kind of the background I had. Anything I learned about Indians, they used to call them in them days, Aboriginals they call them now, or natives. Anything I ever learned was from their textbooks and their religionists, the nuns, the priests. I went to Catholic school, and it was a kind of a residential school as well. It wasn't just for Indians, the one I went to, but I experienced that same kind of problems that I hear others speaking about residential schools. I just tell you one thing because I talk about it, and it used to bother me. When I did something wrong, it wasn't because I was a, bad kid or something. I got accused of whenever I broke the rules or made a mistake, the nuns turned it into a racist thing. And I remember getting a couple of beatings, really hard beatings. Nose bleeding, knocked down, kicked. Because I didn't hang up my clothes. Now that, like I broke the rules, but the reason I got a beating was because I was an Indian. I mean, that became, obvious because the nun kept screaming, "You dirty Indian, you filthy savage," and she kept beating me. And that's why I got a beating, and I knew that when I was a kid. It wasn't because I broke the rules so much. It was because I happened to be Indian. Anyway, that's how I grew up in that kind of a setting. I was separated from my own family. My dad died when I was 4, and that's why I got shifted. Carry the nuns, and my dear old mom, she left us. She went her way. My 2 older brothers, they got farmed out to different farmers, and they were like abused as well. I was with a number of farmers, from one to the other. I was for more or less free labor. But I was very young when I started getting farmed out. The earliest I got farmed out when I was about 9 years old, maybe 10 years old. After that, I got farmed out right till I was 16 years old. Anybody who wanted, who knew the nuns, they're Catholic families mostly that I got farmed out to. I got abused. I got really put down. That was the worst part. I could stand the physical beatings. I figured that was part of life. But what I didn't like was the beatings because I was an Indian, because they had this thing against Indians. I know these people really well. I went back to them later on, and they told me, some of them, they were raised that way. It was built right in with their culture to look down on Indians, to make fun of Indians, to talk about Indians in a negative way. And even Indians got affected by that. I heard Indians talking about themselves that way. Dirty Indians, lazy Indians. But anyway, I got out of there. I'm a survivor. I don't know how I got out of there, but I got out of there when I was 16 years old. And when you're 16 years old, it can be bad, or it can be the other way. With me, I was just starting to understand that life was ahead of me, and there was a lot of things that I look forward to. And I just started to get a kind of a feeling about life, eh? And I thought, I'm going to make it. I don't know what making it was. I didn't know what, but I knew I was going to, somehow I was going to do something good, And so I started off, I left that community when I was old enough, 16 years old. And I went in the Army. I was in the Army for 3 years. That was another thing too. That was quite an experience. People used to ask me, what about your Indian, ways? And I'd get embarrassed because I didn't know them. And I would say, I'd be embarrassed, I wouldn't want to talk about it. In fact, a lot of times I denied I was Indian. I told them I was French or Spanish, anything. They knew I was lying, but I was ashamed to be Indian. And I started to drink, and that caused a lot of trouble. And that's when my anger came out. That's when I got into trouble with the law. And again, the racism is always there. People talk about racism as if it's not there. People don't talk about racism. I was raised up, and believe me, in Canada, it's well entrenched. It's there. It's there, solid. Kind of a sneaky kind of racism, but it's there. So anyway, I got out of the Army, and after 3 years, and a little bit wiser, I started working construction, drinking still. After about 3 years of construction, then I got sobered up. I came to Winnipeg here, 1962. That's when I sobered up. That's when I started getting interested in Indian ways. I'm from Ontario, but I never went back home. I came out this way. Winnipeg means quite a bit to me, because here's where I got sobered up. When I got sobered up, then I went out to the reserves, and there's where I met elders. A lot of those elders I remember now. Some of them are still alive, most of them are dead. But I went to them and I started learning about culture, their version. It was there I heard things like, to be an Indian is beautiful. I heard that from them. And I had a lot of adventures, but what I want to, discuss with you or tell you about is powwow. Now I'm putting on a powwow, big one, this spring. You know all about that. I won't advertise that. But how I got into powwow, I want to tell you about that. So I was this young kid, and I didn't have any background in Indian ways when I first came out here. And I went to the elders. And I was very innocent and very ignorant. I didn't know. I watched the pipe ceremonies. I watched feasts, for the dead among the sodos. I watched, belt dance. I took it, in different powwows. I saw powwow as it was then. First time I saw powwow, man, that was a good experience for me. Look behind me, you'll see that, the bustle's there. That's my bustle, but I didn't have one when I started powwow. I started looking at powwow and it made my heart beat, I see those people out there, dressed up, and they were proud people, the ones who I saw. And I started going to powwows all over. Red Lake, Minnesota, Swan Lake, Saskatchewan, Alberta, Montana. I went to powwows, hitchhike all over the place. And I worked for a living at the same time. And this was when I was sober now. I started going to powwows and ceremonies. Then I joined in powwow. First time I had an outfit. It must have looked pretty funny. I just had a breechcloth, a pair of moccasins, and a pair of jeans. That's all I wore. And I got a hold of a little piece of beadwork there, and I stuck a feather on there. I don't even know what kind of feather it was. It must have been pretty funny looking. But I danced, And the old people, they were pretty kind to me. They recognized me because they see me at all the powwows, so they started knowing who I was. I was pretty young. So they started teaching me things. Families started making friends with me. Different tribes too, not just Ojibways. Ojibways, Sioux, Assiniboines, Chippewas, but that's Ojibway, but that's across the line. Lots of Sioux tribes, they call themselves Dakota, Lakota. I went to all the powwows, and I traveled out west, down Montana way among the Crows, and I started getting known. And I started to learn to dance myself. I worked on my outfit. After a while, I started getting a pretty good outfit together and learning about the different styles, of dancing. My interest always was with ceremonies, because I've been, brainwashed by the Catholics. Anything Indian was considered foolish or stupid, or they were afraid of it. I learned about the laws. I know about the old people that I met. Some of them were afraid of the police. They were afraid to put on their ceremonies because recently, like in their time, some of them went to jail for just having ceremonies. And I even found out I go among some Indians. I don't know, you yourselves, you're Indians, you may see the same thing. Certain communities, they don't want powwow no more because they've been, brainwashed. Sometimes I even hear old Indians saying, we don't want none of that in here. That's witchcraft. That's the work of the, I guess, devil. That's devil worship. They said, first time I've ever been called a witch. Anyway, I started growing my hair long when I was a young kid, first coming into powwow. I don't think there was any other Indians had long hair when I started growing my hair long. I was very young. I got a lot of flack for that. People made fun of it and got angry about it and so on. But I didn't care. I started developing a pride in myself through the ceremonies and through like powwow. And that was in 62 that I started powwow. And I've been powwowing ever, since that time. And ceremonies as well. Traveled a long ways. And then I came back here. I call this home Winnipeg now, for now. And I work in the community. And I do a lot of things. I used to work for the government. And I'm in training and education and counseling and that kind of thing. But I love powwow yet. Well, I wouldn't be working at this one like if I didn't love powwow. But how it came to be, as I understand it, the ceremonies and the Indian way of having ceremonies was outlawed by the church, by the law, by the education like system. And they taught natives how to be ashamed of their own ways. And that's still there. Like I told you, a lot of Indians, they say, we don't want that. That's devil worship, that's evil, They make fun of it. It's still. But anyway, a lot of Indians don't. A lot of Indians know that it's good. It's fun. The reason I like it, because it gave me back my pride as an Indian person. I know the young people say native, aboriginal. Anishinaabe is a real word in our language because I'm Ojibway. It means a real person, or whatever, however way anybody sees it. That don't matter to me. Just so they feel pride in themselves, and that's what that gave to me, was that pride in myself. Somewhere behind me, I don't know if you could see a picture of my son. That's my boy. I'm proud of my boy. When he was very small, I raised him as a single father for about 4 or 5 years, just me and him. And how I raised him was in the powwow circuit at the ceremonies. That little guy is not ashamed of himself as an Indian. He's proud of himself. When I was his age, I was ashamed. He's 8 years old now. I was ashamed to be Indian. It was a humiliation to be Indian. It was a really negative thing to be Indian, because that's what the church taught, that's what the education system taught, that's what the media, and that's what the white people taught. And that's how they thought about Indians. They were afraid, and they put Indians, down. And they really hated Indians. Like a lot of them hated. They hid behind their Christianity and their religion, but they had it there. They wanted to make Indians white. If you become like them, then you were all right. But they wanted people to get away from their roots. And I think they convinced a lot of Indians that to be Indian was, negative. But powwow for me helped me to bring that identity out from myself. I learned through, powwow that I have an identity. I was given an Indian name. Now I have 3 or 4 Indian names. I know who I am. I don't have a identity problem now. My young son, he's the same way. He knows his Indian names. He's got 3 Indian names, given to him by elders. He's a special kind of a boy. He cares about the people, just like I do now. I care about the people. I didn't always care about the people, but now, since he's young, he cares about the people, and people respect him. He respects other people. He's learning in school. He goes to a white school, but he still has that pride because at home, he's with me, and we go to ceremonies. We go lots of powwow.
And that was part 1 with Elder Art Shofley from Winnipeg, Manitoba. He has just finished sharing some of his childhood memories with us. He also briefly told us a little about how he got into the powwow dancing circuit. Please join us again next week for part 2, when we will again listen to Elder Art Shofley as he tells us a little about the history of powwow dancing as he knows it. Thank you for joining us today on our program, Kehte-Hiyak. I'm Frank Douglas for NCI TV, saying goodbye for now.